Hi, Dr. Chopra. This is Stephen Derrick. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. How are you?
Oh, very early for me, so I hope you don't mind that I'm going to be drinking coffee through this.
I'm coming to speak on the future of well-being, and right now I'm speaking about my new book, Supergenes, which I wrote with Harvard neurogeneticist Rudy Tanzi, on supergenes and and how lifestyle affects our gene activity. I'll be also talking about social well-being, community well-being, career well-being, financial well-being, and spiritual well-being. And I'll end the evening with a meditation.
Ah, wonderful. And, I got to see some of the previews for Supergenes, and it seems to be based around the kind of emerging idea of epigenetics, that simply by experiencing things in our lifetime that we cause actual gene changes that can be passed on to our progeny.
To be careful how we address that. So our life experiences and our choices do not change the genes themselves. The sequence of DNA remains the same. What they do is they influence the activity of the genes. So some genes get silenced, some genes get activated, some genes decrease the amount of activity they have, some genes increase the activity they have. Now, think of this like a light switch that you can turn the lights on and off, but with also a dimmer where you can increase the volume or decrease the volume. Now, what is interesting is that some of these effects, no, not some, all of these effects are mediated through very specific chemical changes, or as they're called, marks, on the epigenome, which is a sheet of proteins that's above the gene. And these are actual chemical marks. They go by names like methylation, demethylation, acetylation, deacetylation, but they are physical chemical marks. And these can influence the gene activity even of the next generation, or even 3 generations down the line, by a mechanism called soft inheritance. We don't really understand how that happens at the moment, and this will be the future of genetic research. But the traumatic memories, for example, of Holocaust victims can be passed on to their progeny and influence their experience of life, whether they experience stress or not, things like that. Also, there's evidence that when there was starvation in the Dutch famine as a result of World War II, the future generations of those people who experienced that starvation were more susceptible to obesity and diabetes, in that the memory of starvation resulted in a compensatory response of the body holding on to everything just in case there was a famine again coming. At least that's the hypothesis. Much of this work is in rats and experimental animals, but I think we now have a window into understanding how our choices, which we make every day, including choices for sleep, stress management, exercise, emotional experience, and nutrition, how they affect gene activity.
Now, why is this attractive to you, Dr. Chopra? Why would this idea be important to you?
Well, for 30 years, I've been writing about mind-body medicine. And although there was some science in mind-body medicine about how your mind affects your body through what we call neurotransmitters or neuropeptides, we really didn't know the extent of the detail with which your mind affects everything, including your gene activity.
And so this is a corroboration of the connection between mind and body for you.
Yes, sir.
And then it's very fascinating work, actually.
Yes.
It's been going on for a while. And, you know, it's reaching pop culture. People are beginning to get exposed to epigenetic ideas. and I wonder, you know, you were involved in the early teen movement.
Yes,
and were you
I was.
involved? And you're
Yes.
one of the people that popularized Ayurvedic medicine in the United States.
I was the first one, actually, to do it.
Yeah, and were you involved with Maharishi University?
I was, for many years, yes.
Yeah, I actually was in business for a while with Dr. John Peterson, who's also an MD and an Ayurvedic practitioner, and he went to Maharishi University.
Yes, I remember him well.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, he ran for governor of Indiana with the Natural Law Party.
Right, I do remember.
And I have a question from one of our readers.
Right.
Dr. Peterson explained to me that Ayurvedic was basically a technology lifted from Vedic texts without the religious trappings. Is that true?
That's true, yes.
Matt Colacello asks me, from what traditions would you say that you drew most heavily in helping create Ayurvedic medicine in the United States? Is it Buddhism? Is it Vedic texts?
It's Vedic texts more than anything else. Buddhism came after, but Buddhism actually also is very much aligned with the underlying tenets of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is very popular in Buddhist cultures, including Nepal.
Yeah. And so you do combine elements of both.
I do, yes. I also draw on other Eastern wisdom traditions, like Taoism, and also on indigenous practices all over the world.
You know, I got to meet the Jyotish master in 1994.
Right.
And he gave me my death year, which was 2080. And it was kind of interesting how the idea of that much longevity changed my perspective on life.
Well, yes, but I like that he gave you that and it changed your perspective. But, you know, Jyotish only deals with statistical probabilities, and ultimately you're in charge.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But simply the idea of it being possible to live until 116, I think, changes perspective.
So what's dream the impossible, or what's the dream for?
So, Dr. Chopra, why do people like you so much? Why I announced that I was doing this interview, and on Facebook, and I had hundreds of likes. What do you think the appeal to what you speak about is? Why do people? Why are they attracted to it?
I really have no idea, but I think it's maybe the fact that I try and give a modern insight to the greatest wisdom traditions of the world.
Yeah, it's funny, you have such an opposite effect on members of the scientific community and members of the public, and it's such an odd dichotomy, I think.
Actually,
in preparing.
This week I was appointed a full professor at UCSD Medical School for in the Department of Family Medicine and Public Health. Our continuing medical education courses at our center are approved for CME credit by the American Medical Association. I give an annual lecture at the CME course at Harvard Medical School along with Beth Israel Hospital. There are a few very vocal scientists and critics, but they are slowly becoming the minority.
and you have drawn parallels between theoretical physics and quantum entanglement with some of the ideas that you personally believe in. Are you a follower of the holographic theory of the universe?
Again, I've had some encounters with a certain group of what we might call physicalists in quantum physics. But I've also co-written with Nobel laureate Frank Wilczek from MIT, and he's a Nobel laureate in physics. My next book is actually with a quantum physicist who got his PhD from MIT. So these are controversial subjects.
Oh, yeah.
And whenever you take one side or the other, you're bound to get critics. But I think the critics are given a lot more importance in the media than the people who actually are aligned with you. So if you don't mind, and giving me your email, I'll send you a few articles that are done with really respectable physicists as well.
Oh, yeah. Actually, every day I argue with my readers because we're an engaging site. And I found that critics are necessary because they allow you to explain your point of view better.
What we do if we didn't have critics?
Yeah, we'd be talking amongst ourselves and having tea, I suppose.
So they keep us on the alert, and actually controversy is always good because it expands the conversation.
I have another question from a reader who is, I suppose he's been following you for many years. He was very excited to find that you were coming to town. And he felt like most of the questions that people might ask you have already been asked. But he wanted to know, where do you see this country, the U.S., in 10 years, spiritually, politically, and socially?
Well, spiritually, I just by going to my Facebook site where I do a daily live video blog, I find a great optimism for the spiritual well-being of this country. We have hundreds of thousands of people participating in self-awareness and evolution of their own being. Politically, I'm right now a little concerned with the demagoguery and the great appeal to primitive values in our country right now. That includes a lot of racism and bigotry and prejudice. I pray for the political scene to get better. Otherwise, I think we're living in one of the most amazing countries in the world, and that is going through a wonderful transformation.
Yeah, and so do you think in 10 years we will have progressed? Or do you think in 10 years there's so much risk that it's impossible to tell?
I think we will progress. I think the evolutionary impulse always wins out.
And if you had a piece of advice to a 20-year-old embarking on life now, given what you know, what would that piece of advice be that you would give to them?
Make today a better day for yourself than yesterday. And if you do that every day, you'll have a great life.
Well, I thank you so much for your time. I've been very curious to meet you. Since the very first time I heard of you was from John Peterson back in '94.
To the event, and then we'll connect.
All right, wonderful. And Dr. Chopra, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for sharing your ideas.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hey, have a good day.
Bye-bye.